The war room on Meredith Prime felt like a place where hope went to die. Admiral Telver stood in front of the large holographic display, watching the red dots that showed enemy ships moving closer and closer to Coalition space. His blue scales had turned dull gray over the past few weeks. The stress was killing him slowly. Around the long metal table, the other Coalition commanders sat in silence. They all knew the truth. They were losing the war badly. General Krith broke the silence first. She was a Torvin, tall and strong with 4 powerful arms. "How much time do we have left?" she asked. Tel Vor did not want to answer, but he had to. 2 months. Maybe 3 if luck is on our side. The Caliph Dominion will reach our homeworlds by then. After that, it is over. The words hung in the air like poison. Everyone had known it was coming, but hearing it spoken out loud made it real. The Caliph had been crushing them for 5 long years. Every battle ended the same way. The Coalition lost ships, lost stations, lost entire colonies. The Caliph just kept coming, wave after wave of warships that never seemed to end. Commander Vex spoke up. He was old, even for a Varani. His voice shook when he talked. "We have tried everything. Every strategy. Every tactic. Nothing stops them." It was true. The Coalition had thrown everything they had at the Caliph. Surprise attacks. Defensive walls of ships. Hit and run raids. Suicide missions. Nothing worked. The Caliph Dominion was simply too strong. They had more ships, better weapons, and they knew exactly how to use them. Their tactics had conquered 47 different star systems. 47 civilizations had fallen before them. The Coalition would be number 40-8. A young officer approached the table. His name was Varix, and he looked nervous. "Admiral Telver, sir. We have something strange happening." Telver barely lifted his head. Everything was strange these days. "What is it now?" "There is a ship asking for permission to dock." "A human ship, sir." The room exploded with noise. Everyone started talking at once. General Krith stood up so fast her chair fell over. "A human? That cannot be right. Humans do not leave their space. They never have." "I know, General," Varric said quickly. "But the ship is real. It is right outside. 1 human on board. A female. She says she needs to speak with Coalition leadership right now." Telver felt his mind spinning. Humans were like ghosts. Everyone in the galaxy knew they existed, but no one ever saw them. They lived in their own small group of star systems and refused to talk to anyone. For 200 years, they had said no to every request. No trade. No diplomacy. No help. They just stayed in their corner of space and ignored the rest of the galaxy completely. Why would a human come here? Krith asked. Why now? No one had an answer. Telver made a decision. They had nothing to lose anyway. Let the human dock. But have security teams ready. We do not know what this is about. Half an hour later, the door to the war room opened. A human walked in. Her name was Sarah Chun, and she did not look dangerous at all. She was short, maybe half the height of General Krith. Her body looked weak and fragile compared to the strong warriors in the room. She wore a simple gray uniform with symbols that no one recognized. No weapons on her belt. No honor on her body. Just a small human with dark hair tied back and eyes that seemed to see everything. "Thank you for meeting with me," Chun said. She spoke perfect Coalition standard, which was surprising by itself. Telver studied her carefully. "You are very far from home, human. Your people do not accept visitors. They definitely do not send them out." "They did not send me," Chun said. Her voice was calm and even. "I came on my own. I left without asking permission. Why would you do that?" Chun walked up to the holographic display. She looked at the red enemy markers for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. Because I have been watching your war, and you are going to lose. General Krith made an angry noise. Her scales turned bright orange, which meant she was furious. We know our situation, human. We do not need you to tell us that we are losing. You are going to lose because you fight like everyone else, Chun said, cutting her off. The Caliph have conquered 47 civilizations. Every single one fought the same way. Line up your ships. Follow your formation patterns. Obey your honor codes. Use your standard tactics. You are all playing the same game. The Caliph are just better at that game than anyone else. Telver felt anger rising in his chest. And what would you suggest we do differently? Chun turned to look at him. Let me help. Give me command of one battle. Just one. If my methods do not work, I will leave and you will never see another human again. If they do work, then you let me train your officers. That is my offer. This is crazy, Krith said loudly. We do not know you. We do not know anything about how humans fight. Why would we trust you with our ships and our people? Because you are desperate, Chun said. The words were not cruel, just honest. And because you have nothing left to lose. In 2 months, your civilization will be gone. What difference does one battle make now? The room went silent. Everyone knew she was right. They were already defeated. They were just waiting for the final blow to fall. Telver looked at the human for a long moment. She was small and weak-looking. Humans had no natural armor like the Torvan. No sharp claws like the Varani. No enhanced strength or speed. They looked like they would break if you pushed them too hard. But something in Sarah Chun's eyes was different. She looked like soldiers Telver had known who had seen too many wars and too much death. Which battle do you want? Telver asked. Chun pointed at the display. Cravo Station. The Caliph fleet will arrive in 18 hours. Your computers say you cannot win. You are planning to evacuate and abandon the station. 12 ships against 57 enemy warships, Telver said. Every tactical computer we have says it is impossible. Everyone at that station will die if they stay. They will die if I fail, Chun said. If I succeed, you might actually have a chance to survive this war. A real chance. Telver looked at the other commanders. They looked back at him. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Cravo Station was already lost. The 12 ships defending it were already as good as destroyed. The crews were already dead. They just did not know it yet. At least if they let this human try something, they might learn something useful before the end came. If you fail, those deaths are your responsibility, Telver said. Chun nodded slowly. Those deaths are already my responsibility. Every species the Caliph have destroyed is my responsibility. Because I waited too long to come and help. I watched too many civilizations fall. Not this time. Something in the way she said it made Telver believe her. This was not a glory-seeking warrior looking for fame. This was someone who carried a heavy weight on her shoulders. Someone who had made a choice that cost her everything. You have your battle, Commander Chen. What do you need from us? I need complete access to your tactical networks. I need all the data you have on Caliph ships, their weapons, their tactics, and their communication systems. And I need your commanders to follow my orders exactly. Even if my orders sound strange or wrong. Even if they go against everything you have been taught. Can you do that? Telver took a deep breath. Yes, you have everything you need. Chun nodded once. Good. Then I need to start working immediately. The Caliph arrive in 17 hours and 40 minutes. I suggest your people get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a very long day. She turned and left the war room without another word. The commanders sat in stunned silence. We just gave complete control of 12 ships to a total stranger, Krith said quietly. We gave control of 12 ships that were already dead, Telver replied. Maybe she can make their sacrifice mean something. But deep down, he did not believe it. None of them did. The Caliph Dominion had never lost when they had superior numbers. There was no reason to think tomorrow would be different. They had just watched their last hope walk out of the room. On her small ship, Sarah Chun sat down at her computer and began pulling up files. She had 17 hours to teach the galaxy something it had forgotten over thousands of years of civilized warfare. War was not about having the biggest fleet. It was not about having the best weapons. War was about making your enemy make mistakes. And after 10,000 years of humans fighting each other on Earth, making enemies make mistakes was something humans knew better than anyone else in the galaxy. Chun looked at the Caliph fleet data and smiled. They had no idea what was coming. The bridge of the Coalition flagship Steadfast was quiet. Too quiet. Captain Varix stood at his command station and watched the sensor displays. The Caliph fleet had just entered the system. 57 warships moving in perfect formation. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Like watching a storm roll in that you knew would destroy everything. Caliph. Fleet entering weapons range in 12 minutes. His sensor officer reported. Varix looked at the small human sitting in the tactical chair. Commander Chun had been on his bridge for 6 hours now. She had barely spoken. She just watched the screens and typed commands into her portable computer. The other Coalition ships were reporting the same thing. Humans on their bridges, silent and focused, doing things that made no sense to anyone. Commander Chun, Varix said carefully, the Caliph will be in firing range soon. Should we not begin moving into defensive formation? Chun did not look up from her screen. No, stay exactly where you are. But standard doctrine says we should. Standard doctrine is why you have been losing for 5 years, Chun said. Her voice was not angry, just matter of fact. The Caliph know your standard doctrine. They have beaten it 47 times. Do you want to make it 48? Varix said nothing. She was right, of course. But everything in his training screamed at him to move his ship into the proper defensive position. Staying still felt wrong. The Caliph fleet came closer. On every Coalition ship, officers were getting nervous. The enemy was doing exactly what they always did, moving in a massive wall formation. Overwhelming firepower spread across a broad front. It was simple, effective, and it had never failed them. Against 12 ships, it was like using a hammer to crush an egg. Caliph fleet hailing us, the communications officer said. They are demanding our surrender. Ignore them, Chun said. Commander, if we do not respond, they will think we are too scared to answer. Good. Let them think that. On the Caliph flagship Vengeance, Fleet Commander Thraz watched the Coalition ships with satisfaction. 12 small vessels sitting in a loose cluster around Krava Station. They were not even in proper formation. They looked disorganized and frightened. This would be quick. They are not responding to our hails, Commander, his communication officer said. It does not matter, Thraz replied. They know they are defeated. Move all ships into final attack position. We will destroy them in one strike. The Caliph fleet began its final approach. 57 warships moving as one perfect unit. Every captain knew exactly where to be and what to do. They had done this hundreds of times. It was beautiful coordination born from years of victory. That was when everything went wrong. The Coalition ships suddenly broke apart in 12 different directions. Not in formation. Not in any pattern Thraz recognized. Just 12 ships moving independently in ways that made no tactical sense. One ship accelerated straight at the Caliph fleet. Another dove down and under. 2 more ships started moving in wide circles. It was chaos. What are they doing? Thraz demanded. His tactical officer stared at his screens. I do not know, Commander. They are not following any standard formation. I cannot predict their movements. It does not matter. We outnumber them 5-1. All ships, open fire on the closest targets. The Calith fleet opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced through space. Missiles streaked toward coalition ships. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the coalition ships were not where the Calith thought they would be. They were moving in unpredictable ways, making sudden turns and changes in speed that defied standard tactics. On the Steadfast, Varix gripped his chair as his ship spun and accelerated in ways he had never done in combat before. Commander Chun, we are breaking every rule of formation warfare. Good, Chun said calmly. Rules are what make you predictable. Now launch your missiles. Targeting data is on your screen. Varix looked at his tactical display. Chun had marked targets, but they were all wrong. She was not targeting Calith warships. She was targeting their supply vessels, the slow-moving cargo ships that carried fuel and ammunition for the fleet. But these are not military targets, Varix protested. Do it now, Chun said. Her voice was harder now. Every ship, launch missiles at designated targets. Trust me, Varix gave the order. All 12 coalition ships launched their missiles at the same moment. Not at the Calith warships that were trying to kill them, but at the supply ships in the back of the enemy formation, on the Vengeance. Thraz watched in confusion as coalition missiles flew past his warships and struck supply vessels. 4 cargo ships exploded. Another 3 were damaged and leaking fuel into space. Why are they wasting missiles on supply ships? His tactical officer asked. Thraz did not know. It made no sense. All ships, ignore those attacks. Focus on destroying the coalition warships. We need to end this quickly. But ending it quickly was becoming difficult. The coalition ships were fighting in ways the Calith had never seen before. They would charge forward, then suddenly retreat. They would appear to be making a coordinated attack, then scatter in random directions. Every time the Calith tried to target them, they moved in unexpected ways, and they were using the debris field from the destroyed supply ships as cover. Chunks of metal and fuel containers drifted in space, creating obstacles that the massive Calith formation had trouble navigating around. Commander, we are having communication delays, the Vengeance communication officer reported. Messages between ships are taking 1.3 seconds longer than normal because of interference from the debris. 1.3 seconds is nothing, Thraz said. It does not matter. But it did matter. Chun had known it would matter. She had spent hours studying Calith communication systems. She knew that the Calith fought as one unified fleet. Every ship received orders from the flagship and responded in coordination. That coordination required fast, clear communication. A delay of 1.3 seconds meant nothing in normal space combat. But when ships were moving in unpredictable ways and making sudden changes, 1.3 seconds was the difference between hitting a target and hitting empty space. The battle stretched on for 2 hours. The Calith kept trying to surround and destroy the coalition ships, but they could not pin them down. The 12 defenders kept moving, kept firing at supply vessels and support ships, kept creating more debris that clogged the battle space and slowed Calith coordination. On the Steadfast, Varix was starting to understand what Chun was doing. She was not trying to win a glorious battle. She was not trying to destroy the Calith fleet. She was trying to make them waste time, fuel, and ammunition chasing targets they could not catch. She was making the Calith tired, frustrated, and low on resources. Their formation is starting to break up, Varix said, watching his sensors. Some of their ships are falling out of position because they are low on fuel. Exactly, Chun said. She was smiling now. They brought 57 ships because they expected a quick battle. They did not bring enough supplies for a long fight, and they just used up half their ammunition shooting at ships that were not where they expected them to be. Thraz stared at his tactical display in growing horror. He had lost 11 ships. 11 ships in a battle where he had outnumbered the enemy 5-1. 9 of those ships were support vessels, but without them, his warships were running low on fuel and ammunition. And he had not destroyed a single coalition ship. Not one. "Commander, we need to withdraw and resupply," his executive officer said quietly. Thraz wanted to scream. He wanted to smash something. He had 57 ships at the start of this battle. He should have won in 20 minutes. Instead, he had been fighting for 2 hours and losing. "All ships, withdraw from the system," he said finally. The words tasted like poison. "We will return with proper supplies and reinforcements." On the Steadfast, the crew erupted in cheers as the Caliph fleet began to retreat. Varix could not believe what he was seeing. They had won. 12 ships against 57, and they had won. He looked at Commander Chan. She was not celebrating. She just watched the Caliph's ships leave with a tired expression. "How did you do that?" Varix asked. Chun stood up from the tactical chair. "The Caliph fight like everyone else in the galaxy. They assume their enemies will fight with honor and follow the rules. I do not fight with honor. I fight to win. And winning means making your enemy waste their strength while you preserve yours. Whereas humans learn to fight this way." Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft and sad. "We learned by fighting each other for 10,000 years. Every dirty trick, every deception, every ruthless tactic. We tried them all on each other. We got very good at war because we had to. It was either learn or die." The celebration on the bridge died down as people heard her words. They realized that humans were not peaceful beings who had chosen isolation. They were warriors who had fought so much that they needed to isolate themselves from the galaxy. They were too dangerous to be around others. "Will you teach us?" Varix asked. "Will you teach us to fight the way humans fight?" Chun looked at him. "That is why I came. But understand something. Fighting like a human means giving up your honor codes. It means being willing to lie, to cheat, to do whatever it takes to survive. Your people might not like what I have to teach. The Caliph will destroy us if we do not learn," Varix said simply. "Then I will teach you," Chum replied. "Starting tomorrow. For now, get your crew some rest." They earned it. As Chum left the bridge, Varix sat down in his command chair. They had won an impossible victory. But something in Chun's words bothered him. She had not seemed happy about the win. She seemed tired and sad, like someone carrying a burden they could never put down. On her ship, Chun sent a message to Admiral Telver. It was short and simple. "Battle successful." Caliph withdrew with significant losses. Coalition losses 0. Request permission to begin training program immediately. Then she sat alone in the dark and wondered if teaching aliens to fight like humans was a gift or a curse. Because once you learn to fight the way humanity fought, you can never go back to being innocent again. The news of the Kravo Station victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. 12 coalition ships had defeated a Caliph fleet of 57 warships without losing a single vessel. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. It was the first time anyone had beaten the Caliph Dominion in a straight fight. On Meritus Prime, Admiral Telver authorized Commander Chun's training program immediately. Within days, coalition officers from all 3 species were gathering in the training center to learn from the human. The room was packed with captains, tactical officers, and fleet commanders. Everyone wanted to know how the impossible had happened. Chun stood at the front of the room. She looked tiny compared to the large alien officers, but no one was laughing at her size anymore. "Everything you have learned about warfare is wrong," she began. "Not because your teachers were stupid, but because galactic civilization has been peaceful for too long. You have rules about honor. You have codes of conduct. You have agreements about how battles should be fought. The Caliph follow none of those rules, but even they fight in predictable ways." A Dwarven captain raised one of his forearms. "We saw your tactics at Kravo Station. You attacked supply ships instead of warships. You ran away when you could have attacked. You broke every rule of formation warfare. This is not honorable combat." "You are right," Chun said calmly. "It is not honorable. It is survival. Do you want honor or do you want to live? Choose now, because you cannot have both." The room went silent. Many officers looked uncomfortable. They had been raised believing that honor in battle was more important than victory without honor. General Krith stood up. "Commander Chun, you are asking us to become like the Caliph, to abandon everything we believe about proper warfare." "No," Chun said firmly. "I am asking you to become like humans." And humans learned a long time ago that the only rule in war is to survive. Everything else is decoration. She pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth's history. Thousands of years of human warfare. Battles, invasions, sieges, revolutions. The aliens in the room watched in growing horror as centuries of human conflict played out before them. "Humans fought each other for our entire history," Chung continued. "We developed every weapon we could imagine. We created tactics that other humans called evil and dishonorable. We lied to our enemies. We pretended to surrender and then attacked. We poisoned wells. We burned crops. We did things that would make you sick if I described them in detail. And we did all of this to other humans, our own species." Captain Varric spoke up. He had become something of Chun's assistant over the past week. "Why are you telling us this? Are you trying to scare us?" "I am trying to make you understand what you are asking me to teach you," Chun replied. "Human tactics are effective because humans are willing to do anything to win. We do not have honor codes that limit us. We have survival instincts that push us to find every advantage, no matter how dirty or cruel." She let that sink in for a moment before continuing. "The Caliph think they are ruthless. They think they are the ultimate warriors. But they still fight with predictable patterns. They still follow a military doctrine. They still have rules about how their fleets operate. Humans threw away all the rules thousands of years ago. We kept only one rule: win or die." The training program began that afternoon. Chun taught them about deception in warfare, about making enemies think you are weak when you are strong, about pretending to retreat when you are planning to attack, about sacrificing small advantages to gain bigger ones later. Every lesson violated something the coalition officers had been taught about honorable combat. Some officers quit the training. They said they would rather die with honor than live by fighting dirty. Chun let them go without argument, but most stayed. Most understood that honor meant nothing if your entire civilization was destroyed. Captain Varric proved to be Chun's best student. He absorbed her lessons quickly and started thinking like a human. One day, during a tactical simulation, he suggested using false distress signals to lure Caliph ships into a trap. The other officers looked shocked. Chun looked proud. "That is perfect," she said. "That is exactly the kind of thinking you need. The Caliph will think they are responding to a ship in trouble. Instead, they will fly directly into your weapons range. But it violates every rule of honorable communication," another officer protested. "Then do not use it," Chun said with a shrug. "Let your families be honorably dead instead." The harsh words made everyone uncomfortable, but Chun did not apologize. She was done being gentle. The coalition had months to live if they did not change their thinking. She would not waste time worrying about their feelings. Meanwhile, on the Calith homeworld, the War Council was meeting. High Executor Vrak sat on his throne and listened to Fleet Commander Thraz explain the disaster at Kravo Station. The council chamber was filled with the Dominion's most powerful military leaders, and all of them were furious. "You had 57 ships," Vrak said coldly, "against 12. How did you manage to lose?" "The enemy fought in ways we have never encountered," Thraz tried to explain. "They did not follow standard tactics. They moved unpredictably. They attacked our supply lines instead of engaging in direct combat. It was as if they knew exactly how we would respond to every move." "Then they had better intelligence than you did," Vrak said. "You are dismissed from command. We are assigning the Talon fleet to finish what you could not." Thraz felt his blood run cold. The Talon fleet was the elite unit of the Calith military. 200 warships commanded by the best officers in the Dominion. If they were being sent to deal with one small space station, it meant the Council was taking this very seriously. "Executor, with respect, 200 ships for Kravo Station seems excessive," Thraz said carefully. "We are not going after Kravo Station," Rax replied. "We are going after whoever taught the Coalition those new tactics. Intelligence reports say a human is training their forces. A single human named Sarah Chun. She is now the primary target. The Talon fleet will destroy Meridius Prime and kill this human before she can spread her knowledge any further." The order went hours. The Talon fleet began preparing for the largest military operation the Calith had launched in years. 200 warships armed with the best weapons the Dominion possessed. They would crush Meridius Prime and eliminate the human threat once and for all. On Meridius Prime, Chun was in the middle of a training session when Admiral Telver rushed into the room. His face told her everything she needed to know before he said a word. "The Calith Talon fleet is coming here," Telver said. 200 ships. Intelligence says they will arrive in 5 days. The room erupted in panic. Officers started shouting questions. How could they defend against 200 ships? Should they evacuate? Was there any hope at all? Chen held up her hand for silence. Surprisingly, everyone stopped talking. "How many ships do we have available to defend Meridius Prime?" she asked. 38, Telver replied. "And only 12 of those are fully trained in your methods." 38 against 200, Chen said thoughtfully. She walked to the tactical display and stared at it for a long moment. Everyone watched her, waiting for her to perform another miracle. But Chen did not look confident. She looked worried. And that terrified everyone more than the news of the Talon fleet. "Can we win?" Varix asked quietly. Chen turned to face the room. "Not directly. The Calith learned from Kravo Station. They studied what we did. They will come prepared for our tactics this time. If we try to fight them the same way, we will lose. Then what do we do?" Krith demanded. "We do what humans do best," Chun said slowly. "We adapt. They think they know how we fight now, so we will fight differently. But I need to warn you all of something first." She paused, and her expression was grim. "What I am about to propose will seem insane. It will seem like suicide. Many people will die. The Calith will take Meridius Prime. But if we do this right, taking this moon will destroy their ability to wage war across multiple systems. We will lose the battle, but win the war." "You want us to deliberately lose?" Telver asked in disbelief. "I want us to make winning so expensive for the Calith that they cannot afford it," Chun replied. "I want to turn Meridius Prime into a trap that they cannot escape from. And when they finally realize what we have done, it will be too late." She brought up a complex battle plan on the display. As the Coalition officers studied it, they began to understand what Chun was proposing. It was brilliant. It was ruthless. It was the most human plan any of them had ever seen. "This is Operation Scorched Gate," Chun said. "And if we do it right, The Caliph Dominion will sue for peace within 2 weeks. But first, we have to be willing to sacrifice Meridus Prime itself. Admiral Telver looked at the plan for a long time. Finally, he nodded. We have already lost so much. What is one more moon compared to saving our entire civilization? Do it, Commander Chun. We trust you. Chun hoped that trust was not misplaced, because what she was about to do would either save the coalition or doom them all. And the worst part was that even she was not completely sure which outcome was more likely. Over the next 5 days, the coalition prepared for the arrival of the Talon fleet. But they were not preparing to defend Meridus Prime. They were preparing to lose it in exactly the right way. Chun worked 20 hours a day, coordinating every detail of the operation. She was teaching the coalition the darkest lesson humanity had ever learned. Sometimes the only way to win is to embrace losing. The Talon fleet arrived at Meridus Prime exactly when intelligence predicted. 200 Caliph warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and formed a massive wall of firepower around the moon. On the Caliph flagship destroyer of worlds, Fleet Admiral Kress looked at his displays with satisfaction. The coalition had only 38 ships defending the moon. This would be over quickly. All ships, begin the assault, Kress ordered. I want this moon taken within 12 hours. The battle began. The Talon fleet advanced in perfect formation, their weapons ready. They were prepared for the chaos tactics that had worked at Krovo Station. They had faster communication systems. They had brought extra supplies. They had studied every move the coalition had made and developed counters for all of them. But the coalition was not fighting the same way. Instead of scattering and attacking supply ships, the coalition fleet formed a traditional defensive line. They fought exactly the way they had fought before Chun arrived. Standard formations, predictable movements, textbook defensive tactics. On the coalition flagship, Captain Varix watched his display and felt sick. They were losing. The Caliph were cutting through their defenses like the coalition ships were made of paper. Ships exploded. Stations burned. Thousands were dying. And they were following the plan exactly. Commander Chun, Varix said quietly, we are being slaughtered. Chun sat in the tactical chair, her face showing no emotion. I know. Stay on course. Do not break formation. Make them work for every kilometer. But we are losing. We are supposed to be losing, Chun said. The question is whether the Caliph realized that yet. On the Destroyer of Worlds, Fleet Admiral Kress was pleased. The coalition was fighting stupidly. All that training with the human had apparently been wasted. They were using the same old tactics that the Caliph had defeated dozens of times before. It would take longer than 12 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. They are retreating to the inner defense ring, his tactical officer reported. Pursue them, Kress ordered. Do not let them regroup. I want constant pressure on all fronts. The Talon fleet pushed deeper into the battle space around Meridus Prime. They were winning, but it was taking longer than expected. The coalition was retreating slowly, making the Caliph fight for every position, every station, every orbital platform. The Caliph kept winning, but each victory required ships, fuel, and ammunition. After 18 hours of continuous battle, the coalition fleet retreated to the far side of the moon. They had lost 14 ships. The Caliph had lost 9. By any measure, the Caliphs were dominating the battle. They are making their final stand at the colony dome, the tactical officer said. Intelligence shows they are evacuating civilians to transport ships behind the moon. Send 50 ships to cut off their escape route, Kress ordered. The rest of the fleet will finish destroying their defense force. More Caliph ships moved into position. They surrounded the coalition's remaining ships and began the final assault. It took another 6 hours, but eventually the last coalition defense ship was destroyed or disabled. Meridus Prime belonged to the Caliph Dominion. Scan for the human, Cress ordered. Sarah Chun. She must not escape. Sensors swept the area. They found transport ships fleeing the system. They found escape pods. They found debris. But they did not find Sarah Chun's ship. It had departed before the battle even began. She was gone. Cress slammed his fist against his command chair. She ran. The human ran away and left them to die. Find out where she went. Send fast attack ships to track her. But tracking Chun was not the fleet admiral's biggest problem. As his ships took up positions around Meridus Prime and began the work of occupying the moon, reports started coming in from across the Callith Dominion. And every report was bad news. Admiral, we are receiving emergency transmissions from Supply Hub 17. They are under attack. Supply Hub 23 is reporting enemy ships in their system. The fuel depot at Carvis Prime has gone silent. We think it has been destroyed. Cress stared at the reports in disbelief. While the Talon fleet had been fighting for Meridus Prime, the Coalition had launched simultaneous attacks on 3 major Callith supply hubs. Not heavily defended military stations. Just supply depots, fuel refineries, and ammunition storage facilities. The Coalition had sent every ship they were not using at Meridus Prime to destroy the logistical backbone of Callith operations across a dozen systems. How is this possible? Cress demanded. Our intelligence said all their forces were at Meridus Prime. His intelligence officer looked pale. The ships defending Meridus Prime were not their entire fleet, Admiral. They were a sacrifice. A delaying force meant to keep us occupied while the rest of their ships hit our supply network. Cress felt cold understanding wash over him. The human had not run away. She had been executing a plan. The battle for Meridus Prime had never been about defending the moon. It had been about keeping the Talon fleet busy, burning through fuel and ammunition, while the Coalition destroyed the supplies that every Callith fleet across the region needed to operate. Admiral, we have a bigger problem, his supply officer said nervously. The Talon fleet has used 70% of our fuel reserves taking this moon, and 65% of our ammunition. With the supply hubs destroyed, we cannot get resupplied for at least 3 weeks. Maybe longer. What are you saying? I am saying that we are stranded here, Admiral. We took Meridus Prime, but now we do not have enough fuel to move the fleet. And we do not have enough ammunition to fight if the Coalition counterattacks. We won the battle, but we cannot move or defend our position. Cress understood what the human had done. She had turned the Talon fleet into a giant, useless statue. 200 warships sitting around a worthless moon, unable to move, unable to fight, consuming resources just to maintain basic operations. And across Callith space, dozens of other fleets were discovering they had no supplies because the Coalition had destroyed the logistics network. The human had not fought to win the battle. She had fought to destroy the Callith's ability to wage war across their entire territory. On a small transport ship 3 systems away, Sarah Chun watched the intelligence reports come in. Operation Scorched Gate had worked. The Callith controlled Meridus Prime, but it had cost them everything. Their fleets across the region were running out of fuel and ammunition. Their supply network was shattered. Their military coordination was breaking down. Because ships could not move to support each other, Captain Varric sat beside her. He had escaped on a transport as planned. He looked at the casualty reports from Meridus Prime and felt sick. Thousands had died in the defense. Good people who had followed Chun's orders and fought a battle they knew they would lose. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. Chun was silent for a long moment. Ask me that question in 2 weeks, she finally said. When the Callith sue for peace because they cannot afford to continue the war. Ask me then if those deaths were worth saving your entire civilization. How did you know it would work? Because humans have done this before, Chun said. In our own wars. Sometimes the only way to beat a stronger enemy is to make them overcommit to a victory that destroys them. Let them win a battle. Let them celebrate. And then reveal that their victory has actually ruined them. It is the cruelest tactic in warfare, but also the most effective against an arrogant enemy. 8 days later, the Callous Dominion sent a formal request for a ceasefire. Their fleets were stranded across a dozen systems. Their logistics were in chaos. They could not continue offensive operations without supplies, and it would take months to rebuild their supply network. The coalition agreed to the ceasefire, then pushed for peace negotiations. The war was over. The coalition had survived. The Callous Dominion withdrew from coalition space and agreed to a permanent treaty. After 5 years of defeat, the coalition had won. And everyone knew it was because of one human who thought about war differently than anyone else in the galaxy. Admiral Telver wanted to give Chun command of the entire coalition fleet. General Krith wanted to make her a hero and build statues in her honor. The Coalition Council offered her citizenship, a home, anything she wanted. Chun refused everything. "I need to go home," she told them. "My people will have noticed I am gone by now. They will send someone to find me. I knew this would happen when I left." "We can protect you," Telver said. "You saved us. We owe you everything." "You owe me nothing," Chun replied. "I came because I needed to. Because I was tired of watching species die when I could have helped. But now I need to face the consequences of breaking my people's most important law. What will they do to you?" Varix asked. Chun smiled sadly. "I do not know. Humans are still learning how to exist peacefully. We isolated ourselves because we were dangerous. Because our way of thinking about conflict and warfare made other species uncomfortable. I violated that isolation. There will be a price to pay." 3 days later, a human ship arrived at the rendezvous coordinates Chen had sent. It was larger than her small vessel, painted in the gray colors of humanity's isolation fleet. Chun prepared to leave, but Varix stopped her. "Why did you really come?" he asked. "The truth this time." Chun looked at him. "Because I hope that if my species ever needs help, if we ever find ourselves losing to an enemy we cannot defeat, someone out there will remember that a human helped them. Someone will return the favor. Maybe then, humanity can finally stop being afraid of itself and join the rest of the galaxy properly. You sacrificed everything for that hope?" "Yes," Chun said simply. "Because hope is what humans do best, even when it seems stupid." She left without ceremony. The Coalition personnel who had gathered to say goodbye watched her small ship dock with the larger human vessel. Then both ships jumped to faster-than-light travel and disappeared. No one knew what would happen to Sarah Chun. No one knew if humanity would ever speak to the galaxy again. But everyone remembered what one human had done. How one person with a different way of thinking had changed everything. The galaxy was different now. The Callith had learned that overwhelming force was not enough. Other aggressive species took notice and became more cautious. The Coalition had learned that survival sometimes required abandoning honor for pragmatism. Captain Varix was promoted to Admiral. He took command of the Coalition training programs and taught officers to think like humans when necessary. He taught them about deception, about sacrifice, about making enemies pay for their victories. He became one of the galaxy's most respected military minds. And he always told his students the same thing Sarah Chun had told him. War is not about having the best weapons or the most ships. War is about making your enemy make mistakes. And humans spent 10,000 years learning every mistake there is. On Earth, in humanity's isolation zone, Sarah Chun stood before a tribunal of her own people. They asked her why she had violated the isolation protocols, why she had exposed humanity to the galaxy again, why she had taught aliens the dark arts of human warfare. She answered honestly. She had done it because it was right. Because letting innocent people die when she could help was worse than any punishment they could give her. Because humanity could not hide forever, and maybe showing the galaxy that humans could be helpful would ease the transition when isolation finally ended. The tribunal debated for days. Some wanted her imprisoned. Some wanted her exiled. Some wanted her celebrated as a hero. In the end, they could not agree. So they did what humans often do when facing a difficult decision with no clear answer. They waited. They watched. They let time reveal whether Sarah Chun's actions had been wisdom or foolishness. And while they waited, they sent observers to monitor the coalition and see what impact one human's intervention had on galactic affairs. Years would pass before humanity made a decision about rejoining the galaxy. But when they finally did, they would be welcomed as the species that had saved the coalition. As the people who understood war so well that they had ended one by losing a battle. And Sarah Chun would be remembered as the human who changed the war. Not by being the strongest or the fastest or the most powerful, but by being willing to sacrifice everything for strangers and by thinking about problems in ways no one else could imagine. That was humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or tactics or technology, but the stubborn, irrational willingness to help others, even when it cost them everything, even when it made no logical sense. Because sometimes the most human thing you can do is care about someone else's survival as much as your own. And that was a lesson the galaxy needed to learn.